Abba Father, we thank you for this time that we can learn and talk about the words that you left for us to learn in order to discover you. Pray that you help us as we go through these few passages. B'Shem Yeshua Mashiach, Amen. So, last week, our Parasha ends with the events concerning Noah over drinking, concerning a genealogy in Genesis 10, the Tower of Babel with its great hunter king Nimrod. That's where the text of the Parsha ends last week. Many people, when people talk about the story of what happened between Noah and Ham, very often people add elements of a sexual nature, but there is really absolutely no evidence in the text that anything such happened. But when we read the text, we read that Ham's descendants were cursed for something wrong that Ham did, but that Shem and Japheth were blessed for something good that they did. So, about this story, it is usually taught that the sin of Ham was, and I quote, he saw his father shamefully exposed, and he went out and told his brothers. Genesis 9:22. Whereas when Shem and Japheth heard about it, and I'm quoting again from Genesis 9:23, Shem and Japheth took a cloak, put it over their shoulders, and walking backward, went in and covered their naked father. Their faces were turned away so that they did not see their father laying there shamefully exposed. That's what the story tells us straight. What happens really by reading just a literal view of the story without adding anything, what we see is that Ham publicized his father's vulnerable position, but Shem and Japheth protected it with a cloak, doing exactly what Solomon said when he said, love covers all kinds of transgressions. And also First Peter is also said the same thing in love covers many sins. 1 Peter 4:8. Due to today's generation, which thinks nothing of slandering and shaming authority and parents, we think very little about that. We don't read it as something particularly wrong. But that's because our society today doesn't look at it as something particularly bad. But the truth is that the Torah forbids slandering authorities, shaming others, especially parents, which in the Torah is akin to murder. And so in that society also, parents are like the Almighty, just about. And in some Asian societies, it's still like that. So because of having exposed his father, shamed his father, Ham was punished through one branch of his descendant, not all the children of Ham. Canaan, one branch, because Ham had all the children. He had a child called Mizraim, who became the father of the Egyptians. He had a son called Cush, who was the father of the Ethiopians. And he had Canaan. He had other ones who are actually the name of different other countries. So the one that was punished was Canaan, who was cursed with a curse. He shall become servant of servants. And that curse happened already because Canaan was in the land of Canaan and Israel came there. Israel was a country of servants, freed servants. There were servants who created their nation, and as they came to the land of Canaan, they subjugated the people there. So Canaan de facto became servant of servants. The prophecy was fulfilled. So, but listen to what Shem said, Noah, the blessing that Noah pronounced on Shem and Japheth. He says, "Blessed be Adonai, the God of Shem." Noah called Adonai the God of Shem. Canaan will be their servant. May God enlarge Japheth. He will live in the tents of Shem. Japheth became the father of all the Caucasian land, Europe, northern. Ham became the father of the African lands. Shem became the father of the Asians, including Jews, Arabs, Chinese. So we all see that in action, starting with the Tower of Babel event. And I want to tell you a bit of the story of Abraham in that story. Okay, I'm going to go very quick. Nimrod, the mighty hunter, was one of the sons of Cush. So basically, he was the grandson of Ham. Cush was the son of Ham. Nimrod was a mighty strong man and sly and tricky, the great hunter and trapper of man and animal. His followers grew in numbers, and soon he became the mighty king of Babylon, and his empire extended over other great cities. When you're a hunter, you provide food for people. So you say, wow, if this guy's our king, he's going to hunt for us, he's going to teach us how to hunt. Wow, we're going to be rich and always going to have food. Nimrod did not feel very secure on his throne because of the Noahide blessing that rested on Shem. This was all very fresh. It was like 2-3 generations after Noah. So Nimrod felt, well, Shem got blessed. I'm a son of Ham. Oh, that's difficult. So he feared that one day there would appear a descendant of Noah, heir and successor from Shem, that would claim the throne. But he was determined not to have any challenger. Some of Shem's descendants had already been forced to leave that land and build their own cities and empires. So they already left. They say, well, this guy, he doesn't want any competition. Let's go somewhere else. There was only one prominent member of the Semitic family that left in his country, in Nimrod's country. His name was Terah, son of Nahor. Terah was the 8th generation removed in a direct line of descendants of Shem. But Nimrod had nothing to fear from Terah, because Terah was his most loyal and trusted servant. And Terah had long before betrayed his family and had become a follower of Nimrod. Like the other people in that country, Terah believed that Nimrod received his kingdom as a gift from the gods, and that he was himself a god. Terah was prepared to serve Nimrod with all his heart. Indeed, he proved himself a very loyal and useful servant. Nimrod entrusted into his hand the command of his armies and made Terah the highest minister in his land. Terah had everything he wanted except a wife. So he found himself a wife whose name was Amatlai. They were looking to raise a big family, but they didn't have any children. The years flew by. Terah had no son. His father was only 29 years old when Terah, was born. But Terah was getting closer to 70, and yet there was no son. He prayed to Nimrod and to his idols to bless him with a son, but his prayers were not answered. Wonder why. Little did he know that Nimrod felt happy about Terah's misfortune. For although Nimrod had nothing to fear from Terah, he could not be sure if Terah's sons would be as loyal to him as their fathers. Therefore, he was inwardly very pleased. Okay, we're going to have to do a little break.
The battery's running low.
We need to
Stand the cord. Yeah, take that one. Just unplug.
Let me have a little technical issue.
Battery. Oh man.
Maybe you know what? Here, just for now.
Okay.
Just for now. Yeah, just do this one for now, Ted. Yeah, just do this one for now.
Thank you, though, Ted.
Technical issues. Okay. So. Okay. So.
Okay.
So because of his insecurity, Nimrod asked his astrologers to look at the sky to see if there's going to be any problems one day. One night, the stargazers noticed a new star rising in the east. Every night it grew brighter, they informed Nimrod. Nimrod called together his magicians and astrologers. They all agreed that it meant that a new baby was to be born. Becoming a familiar story. A new baby was to be born, and who might challenge Nimrod's power. It was decided that in order to prevent this, all newborn baby boys would have to die, starting from the king's own palace, down to the humblest slave's hut. And who was put in charge of this important task? Terah, of course, Nimrod's most faithful servant. Terah set out man to round up all expectant mothers. The king's palace turned into a gigantic maternity ward. A lucky mother who gave birth to a girl, then they were both sent home, laden with gifts. But if the baby happened to be a boy, he was put to death without mercy. One night, Nimrod's stargazers, watching that new star, saw that it grew very bright and suddenly dart across the sky, first in one direction, then in another, west, east, north, and south, swallowing up all the other stars in its path. Nimrod was with his stargazers on the roof of his palace and saw the strange display in the sky with his own eyes. What is the meaning of this? He demanded. There can be only one explanation. A son was born tonight who will challenge the king's power. And the father is none other than Terah. Nimrod roared, "My own trusted servant."
So, what was it?
Terah gave birth to a child.
Oh, yeah. Terah's wife.
Yes.
That's why I didn't understand.
Nimrod had never given a thought to Terah becoming a father at the age of 70. However, if he became a father, he would surely be glad to offer his firstborn son to his king and God. So Nimrod dispatched a messenger to Terah at once, ordering him to appear together with his newly born son. That night, Terah and his wife, Amaklieth, had indeed become the happy parents of a baby boy, who brought a great light and radiance into their home. Terah had hoped it would be a girl. He would have no terrible decision to make. He couldn't think of giving up his lovely baby born to him in his old age, after such a longing. He had managed to keep his wife's expectancy a secret. None of his servants knew about the birth of his son. There was a secret passage leading from the palace to a cave in the field. He took the baby to that cave and left it there. As he was returning to the palace, past the servants' quarters, he suddenly heard the cry of a baby. "What good fortune!" Terah cried. It so happened that one of his servants had given birth to a boy about the same time as his own son was born. Terah took the baby and put him in silk swaddling and handed it to his wife to nurse. Just then the king's messenger arrived. When Terah, with the baby in his arm, appeared before Nimrod, Terah declared, "I was just about to bring my son to you when your messenger came." Nimrod thought it was mighty loyal of Terah to give up his only son, born to him in his old age. Little did he know that it was not Terah's son who was brought to die, but a servant's. For 3 years little Abraham remained in the cave, where he did not know day from night. Then he came out of the cave and saw the bright sun in the sky and thought that it was God, capital G, who had created the heavens and the earth, and him too. But in the evening the sun went down, and the moon rose in the sky, surrounded by myriads of stars. This must be God, capital G, Abraham decided. But the moon too disappeared, and the sun reappeared, and Abraham decided that there must be a God who rules over the sun and the moon and the star and the whole world. And in the book of Josephus, it is written that Abraham discovered the presence of the true God who made heaven and earth by observing the regular movements of the stars and planets and heavenly bodies. And so from the age of 3 years and on, Abraham knew that there was only one God, capital G, and he was resolved to pray to him and worship him alone. Their story has a familiar tune to it, familiar resonance with Yeshua, but also with Moshe. Abraham discovered God through nothing less than God's creation. Just like it says in Romans 1:20, forever since the creation of the universe, God's invisible qualities, both his eternal power and his divine nature, have been seen clearly because they can be understood from what he has made. That's Romans 1:20. Abraham's discovery changed the world. It brought fulfillment to Noah's prophecy. The role of Abraham was to birth a people that would become those who know the God of Abraham, which today are defined in the 3 main monotheistic religions, the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims. Noah called God the God of Shem. He said, "Blessed be Adonai, the God of Shem." Canaan became subjugated to the Israelites. The Tanakh tells us of many blessings that are related to Abraham and his seed. The most famous one is, "I will bless those who bless you, I will curse anyone who curses you, and by you all the families of the earth will be blessed," which has been fulfilled time and again, especially through Yeshua. History has actually been a testimony that the blessing of Noah has been fulfilled, but that the blessings related to Abraham are also fulfilled. It's important to understand that the blessings to the children of Abraham are being fulfilled. The Brit Hadashah teaches us about the blessings that come to Abraham's own biological seed, as well as about his spiritual seed of those who are grafted in to it through Yeshua. Hashem told Abraham in Genesis 17:5, your name will no longer be Abram, exalted father, but your name will be Abraham, father of many, because I have made you the father of many nations. Now I would like to open a little segue parenthesis here about the blessings of Abraham. There's a blessing on the biological descent of Abraham. Even on that biological descent that comes from Ishmael, as we read it in Genesis 16. The angel Gabriel appeared to Hagar and Ishmael, and there is a blessing that was uttered upon Ishmael. It's important to understand that that also is a promise made to Abraham. That promise was made because of the virtue of Abraham. Because when the Romans took over Israel 2,000 years ago, after the second revolt, they renamed the area after Israel's arch enemies, who were the Philistines. So they renamed it Palestina, which is the same word. But the Philistines of then are descendant of Japheth. They come from the Aegean Sea, near Greece, Turkey. They're Japhethites. They're Japhethites. So people who don't know that, they say the Palestinians of today are the same as the Philistines just because of the same name. But it's not the same people at all. The people today who have been dubbed as the Palestinians are actually children of Abraham through Shem. Most of them come from Jordan, some from Egypt, some from Lebanon and Syria. The great majority come from Jordan. So they are children of Abraham through Ishmael. The children of Ishmael mixed later on with the children of Esau and created what's called the Arab world, who are all children of Abraham. In one of those videos that I was talking about Against All Odds, Israel Survived, there is a testimony of 6 Israeli soldiers who were holding of an army, a Jordanian army, coming to capture Jerusalem, and they just had 10 bullets left. You know, the story is about like this. Details might be different. So they asked the guy in charge, what do we do? He said, well, we shoot our bullets and then we see. You know, it's like the menorah, you know, well, let's pick what we have and then we see. You know, and they shot their bullets, and then all of a sudden, and they thought that's for sure, they're going to come, they have no more ammunition, they're done. And all of a sudden they flee. The Jordanian army, they flee, they go away. And this is, they could have captured, they could have won, we had nothing left, you know. And later on, there was a prisoner that was taken from there. And one of the captains and the guy who was in charge went to see that prisoner in the hospital and says, what happened to you guys? We had nothing left. You were going to win. He says, you didn't see? You didn't see? Abraham appeared to us all and said, leave your cousin or your brother alone. And as they were fleeing, they were saying, Abu Ibrahim, Father Abraham. You know, one of those stories, you know. So you can find it in one of those videos. So, okay. Now, I want to go back to Romans and Paul, trying to reassure the non-Jewish Romans followers of Yeshua of their status within Israel. That's always been that issue.
So what is it? What was the issue?
Now we're finished with that parenthesis. We're going on with it.
Okay.
Talking about Abraham for the nations. So, Paul was teaching the Roman congregations, and if you read Romans 1, 2, and 3, the, the, the body of Jewish believers and the body of non-Jewish believers, they were at each other's throat a little bit. They had a lot of disunities. It was a little bit like the story of the father with the two children, the biological daughter and the adopted daughter, and the two are saying, he's my real father. It's like there was, and sometimes there is some of that going. It's not a new issue. It's not an old one either. It's just so there. So, but trying to reassure the non-Jewish Romans, disciples of Yeshua, of their status within Israel, Paul documents on that international Abrahamic fatherhood of Israel, of Abraham, in the fact, Paul explains to them, says, he reminds them that Abraham put his faith in God and was accepted by God as righteous when he was still uncircumcised. Romans 4, 11 and 12 says, in fact, Abraham received circumcision as a sign, as a seal of the righteousness he had been credited with on the ground of the trust he had when he was still uncircumcised. This happened, now Paul is giving an interpretation. He's not saying, oh, it could be midrash. He says, he's making a statement why God did that. He says, this happened so that Abraham could be the father of every uncircumcised person who trusts and thus has righteousness credited to him, and at the same time to be the father of every circumcised person who not only has had a Brit Milah, but also follows in the footsteps of the trust which Abraham Avinu had when he was still uncircumcised. God accepted Abraham before he was circumcised so he could be the father of many families, Jews and non-Jews, Israelites and non-Israelites. The statement by Paul does not negate the perpetual commandment given to Israelites to circumcise their male children, but it does make the act of believing by faith supreme alone. By believing by faith alone supreme. It also makes the act of following in the footsteps of Abraham supreme. That's actually the theology that got Paul in trouble. He says, you can be children of Abraham without going through the circumcision. That's why they said, oh no, you can't teach that. He says, well, sorry. And Paul knew how to do that. So, Yeshua continued on the same path. And I want to go through a couple of conversations he had. In John 8:31 through 40, it says, Yeshua said to the Judeans who had trusted him. Yes, Yeshua. He said, if you obey what I say, then you are really my Talmidim. That's what Yeshua said. If you obey what I say, then you are really my Talmidim. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. There is one condition to that, if you obey what I say. They answered, the Judeans, we are the seed of Abraham. We've never been slaves to anyone. What do you mean? We will be free? Well, this statement from the Judeans could be really, really argued because the children of Israel were enslaved by Egypt, then Babylon, and now they were subservient to the Romans. So to say that was kind of Uh, that this shows the fallacy of historical misinterpretation. So, but what did Yeshua answer? He says, "Oh yes, indeed." Notice he didn't go into, "Oh yes, you were." He didn't grab onto that. He stayed right on track with what he wanted to say. He could have, but that was not the point. He stayed on track, and he said, "I tell you that everyone who practices sin, is a slave of sin. Now, a slave does not remain with a family forever, but a son does remain with it forever. So if the son frees you, you are really free." So we become sons of Abraham through the son. Uh, this goes along with what we studied at Torah Club about the taxes, where Yeshua said, the children of the kingdom don't pay taxes. So, but I won't go there. So what he's saying, whether Jew or Gentile, only the Messiah sets us free. And then he says to them, "I know you are the seed of Abraham." He agrees with them. The Judeans are descendants of Abraham. But then he's going to direct the conversation somewhere else. He says, "Yet you are to kill me, because what I'm saying makes no headway with you. I say what my father has shown me. You do what your father has told you." So they just said, "We're children of Abraham." And he agreed. He said, "I do what my father told me. You do what your father tells you." The discussion is getting a little bit heated. Dangerous ground. But, we read this and you say, "Wow, they were really mad and hitting at each other." But, no. Actually, yes, they were. But if you ever read Talmud conversation, they really go at each other. It is a normal thing, just about. It's not recommended, but it's very, Latin, Easterners, very emphatic, very, emotional when they talk, using hyperbole, So it doesn't mean that they're necessarily, it means they're just pretty hot and passionate about what they're talking about. But still, this is a bit of dangerous ground. So Yeshua was controlling the conversation and leading them by this thing, Father, Son, by leading them into a certain area. So they answered when he said, "You do what your father told you." They said, "Yes, our father is Abraham." That's exactly what Yeshua wanted. He was leading the conversation into that thing. Now he can address the real issue, expose the real problem. He says, if you are children of Abraham, then do the things Abraham did. Do the things that Abraham did. That's a good advice for all of us. And then he's going to expose the 100-pound gorilla in the room.
100?
100 pounds. I think it was 100 pounds.
It was a small girl.
500?
500.
500, okay.
Right.
A baby gorilla. I don't know. He says, Yeshua says, "As it is, you are out to kill me, a man who has told you the truth which I heard from God. Abraham did nothing like this. You are doing the things your father does." Oh boy. That was really bad. So they say to him, "We are not illegitimate children. We have one Father, God." That was dirty. That was dirty. Because what they were doing, he was telling them, "Father of Abraham, and you do what you want." And then they said, "But we're children of Abraham, we have one Father but God." but we are not illegitimate children like you. We've heard the rumors about you, how you were born, like an angel came to you, mom. Yeah. Until this day, there was a lot of rumors that his birth was actually from a Roman soldier. And until this day, it is being taught in circles that Yeshua's birth was through an affair that Miriam had with a Roman soldier. So that was a blow below the belt. But when somebody does that, if somebody starts like if I have a conversation, an intelligent conversation with somebody, and we go back and forth, and all of a sudden they do something like this, I know I won, because they've lost, they ran out of substance. So the only thing they have left is a blow below the belt, where they have to attack my character. They have to say, people get into racism, genderism, people get into this and that. When people attack character, it's because